Hola, hola, everybody. Back at you again with another awesome interview. This time we are with Isabela joining us from Florida. She's with Florida Rising. And again, just like we've been sharing, today is election day. There's a lot at stake. I know a few of us are going to be scrolling through our timelines, scrolling through the channels, trying to tune in to see what the pundits are saying. Pero honestly, nobody knows better about what's happening on the ground than our gente who are here on the front lines doing the work. So whether you're watching us from home, from work, on your way to the drop box, or on your way to vote, please exercise that privilege if you can. And let me go ahead and toss it over to Isabela to kick us off with a quick little intro, and then we can dive into the questions and see how things are on the ground out there in Florida. Isabela?
Course. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mijente. It is always a pleasure to collaborate with you all. We were at the Chisme Tour. I loved sharing space with all of our comrades there. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Isabela or Isa. I live in Florida and by way of Chile. I was born and raised in Chile. All my family is there. So I have strong ties, and my soul lives in South America, and I currently reside in Miami, Broward, and I work as a um, Latinx constituency, Latin American constituency director at Florida Rising.
Solid. Gracias, Isa. So let's start by talking about Florida Rising, right? So for folks who might not be familiar with y'all's work or your organization, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in the community? And
Mhm.
for our audience who isn't familiar, can you share just a little bit about what the Latina population looks like in Florida?
Yes, of course. So, Florida Rising is an independent political organization that centers historically marginalized communities, specifically Latinos and Black folks, so everyday Floridians can shape the future. What we do in the organization is organizing multiracial movements to both win elections, change laws and public policy, and center and create a state where all Floridians can be happy and healthy, and whole, and have the rights and dignity that they deserve.
And talking a little bit on the policy piece, I know that, Amendment 4 is super huge in Florida right now, something that folks have top of mind on their ballot. Can you explain a little bit what Amendment 4 is and what's at stake with that in Florida?
Yes, absolutely. So, first, we need to start with the present. Where are we as Floridians right now in regards to reproductive injustices, right? Right now in the state of Florida, we have a 6 week abortion ban with no real exceptions for rape or incest. Why do I say no real exceptions? Because there are layers to getting a 15-week pass if you pass those layers, right? Which involves a lot of policing. We know Latina populations have an extra added layer of injustice. Towards that, we're scared. Some of us are navigating a very complex immigration system, specifically in the South. And so we have that added layer of worry and inaccessibility. So we have that 6 week abortion ban. To get an abortion in Florida, which is super important to like guide us through the process, you realize that you're pregnant. You have to go to a gynecologist, which is money. A lot of us are uninsured. Then you have a 24-hour waiting period um, with how do you say ecografia in English? With an ultrasound, right? Then you have to get another appointment with a gynecologist. And if you are navigating through all of these systems and you are past 6 weeks, the majority of women who have abortions are already mothers, which means childcare for the doctor appointments, um, more money, right? Making sure that they get picked up from school if they go to school. And then if you are past 6 weeks, we have the option to leave the state. However, for the people who are experiencing this very complex and living through this very complex immigration system here in the United States, we cannot travel through plane. And so there are added public policies that Latinas and migrants specifically have to go through in order to leave and come back to the States. And that is money that we do not have. Now in Florida, we are smart. We know that this is an attack on working class Floridians because we know that people who have access to political loopholes, right, politicians, and people who have money and wealth will always have access to abortion and reproductive care. Always. They can travel anywhere, they can go to any country, they can go to any state and get the access that working Floridians do not have because we are working 2, 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So we talked to Floridians, we knocked on doors, we made phone calls, and we collected more than 1 million petitions to put this constitutional amendment on the ballot. And it is a way of codifying reproductive access without political interference until viability.
Thanks so much for sharing about like the work that it took to get here and for also like breaking down the reality of those systemic barriers. I think that there's a huge misconception often like propagated by the right that it's as easy as a woman or, person who can become pregnant saying like I want an abortion and having it be that easy, and we know that not to be the case. So I would love to hear more about like how does Amendment 4 tie into like what you've been noticing broadly, right, nationally. We've seen that there have been a wave of states either trying to protect abortion or restrict abortion access in recent years. So how does what's happening in Florida kind of tie into what we're seeing nationally?
Yes, of course. I just want to share before we get into it that the most fundamental principle of our democracy is for a country is for its citizens to have the right to make decisions over themselves, right? The right to self-determination. We see that being attacked, right? We see politicians getting on political rallies and talking about our countries, talking about, like, even if you look at what happened at that rally, you see that there's a questioning over reproductive decisions and choices, and so there's a stigma that comes when we talk about the word reproductive care and abortion. People think that abortion is this new issue that just came about, and oh my God, all of these feminists are coming and they're up in arms because abortion is older. Abortions are older, and I'm telling you, as an Indigenous person, than any economic structure, than any church. When people are born in this world, at the beginning of history, abortion was a thing, right? It's not something new. So when we talk about Amendment 4, you're not banning abortion. You're banning the right that we have to determine our futures, and you are banning our rights to safety. So we see specifically in the South, right, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, that there's this pattern, right? And we see, if we put it in a geographical map, we see what colors are represented in the South and in the North. And we have to ask ourselves, and I don't want to be the person to be like, this is because of this specific reason, but I want to invite people to do their own research, to see how much money is being invested by politicians to take your bodily autonomy away. See how much money politicians are investing in their political campaign and see what their talking points are, right? I'm going to defend women whether they like it or not. I'm going to there needs to be a punishment for women who have abortions. And we see this time and time again throughout history, and they have exactly the same talking points, and people believe it. But we know that in the state of Florida, where people are smart, we have had an incredible reception with our campaign. I was just knocking doors earlier today at 9 in the morning. My team and I have been up since 5. So if you see us on the streets, say hi, have a conversation with us, and make sure that you show up and show out for your community today and every day, right? Because voting is just a tool in your toolbox. It is the strategy is not a love letter. It's not a portfolio of your values. It is a strategy that we use, right? And a tactic that we use in order for us to have better conditions and live a life that we actually want. I know a lot of people are like, and that's that goes to your question about Latinos in Florida. This is not my country. I don't make the rules here. They already have their own thing, but that is a lie. And I used to think that way. Why would I even get involved in this if my family lives there, but you live here? This is your space, this is your home, and you deserve to have a life that you like and that you love, to spend time with your children, to make decisions over your own body, to go and vote for somebody who's going to represent you. These like super small um, acts of love towards our community can be expressed through a vote. And also, what do we do after, right? What do we do at 7 p.m. when we know that we've won? And so I'm excited for tonight. I'm excited to celebrate along millions of Floridians who have been hearing us and who know what the truth is.
Absolutely. And I think just breaking away from this rhetoric that is punitive, that seeks to punish women and folks who can carry, let's like take a moment to recenter ourselves on like the joy of it, of like running a campaign like this. You say that your folks have been on the ground
Yes.
talking to folks. So I wonder if there's been like a memorable moment, something that was maybe challenging or rewarding, just a moment where you saw like real change or impact happening on the ground throughout this campaign, something that stands out to you as like, wow, we're actually out here putting in the work, making a difference.
Yes, of course. So I'm not a person that is a fan of preaching to the choir, right? I know who our people are. I know how to get them. I know that they're organized. I know that our values align. And I also have talked to people whose values align with mine, but they're not able to put it into words, who believe in the depth of us needing justice and rights, but they have been so misinformed by the media and by political campaigns that they are not able to make the click on why it is that they believe in something or why it is that they don't believe in something. So I love talking to undecided voters, people who have never been touched before by anybody on the street. Um, and there's also a lot of people who are like, I haven't gotten, nobody has reached out to me. Do I not matter? Like, do you not want to have conversations with me? Those are my favorite type of folks to talk to. And I think those are the folks that we need to bring towards the center, specifically people in the margins, to bring them to the center and make sure that they have a space, a political home, like Florida Rising, like Latinas en Marcha, like Mijente, that they can come into and develop as leaders. I have seen undecided folks. I have seen folks who have been disinformed by the right and make their way back to their people. And that's one of my favorite things to see.
Right, that idea of like a political home, right, and kind of coming in and making sure that our movements are as inclusive as the folks who are running them.
Yeah.
Just last question from us today. Gracias for sharing everything. Thank you for, sharing stories on the ground. Thank you for diving deep into the policy and the work that it took us to get there. Last question from us. We know that reproductive rights are a key issue in this election, not just in Florida, but across the country. Pero como que, what other issues are you seeing that are really motivating Latine voters in Florida to get out and vote?
Yes, we see housing in the state of Florida. People cannot live alone. Young people like you and I, we cannot afford our own rent. We have to live with roommates. That is an issue. And that is an issue that is political. It's politicized. We have different judges like Meredith Sasso who are against housing affordability. So we're going to vote them out, you know. We see uh, climate justice, the air that we're breathing in the state of Florida, all of the incinerators that are being put in Black and Brown communities, that is an issue. And that is very targeted to people like you and I, right? To people who are afrodescendientes, who don't have food around like their area, like in a mile radius. They do not have access to fresh food. And we also see immigration being an issue. I know Florida has a very large Puerto Rican community, and I see them. They're pissed, you know, and they should be. And they should be, because that's not only what this person thinks of them, it is also what he thinks of us, you know, all of us as a Latino community here in Florida and in the United States.
Thank you. And finally, I think something that you've shared that just really is sticking with me is the fact that like the act of voting alone is not, you know, an act of love. It's not a love letter, but in a way and in so many ways, the work that we do with our communities and reaching out to them and bringing them in, that's the act of love, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely.
Yes.
Lastly, where can our viewers connect with you, connect with Florida Rising? How can we continue to support your work? Any social media plugs that you'd like to leave? We'd love to hear them.
Always, we have Latinas en Marcha at Latinas en Marcha. All of our content that is Latina centered lives there. All of our events, we just had a karaoke de una noche de despecho where we sang Juan Gabriel together. We have food, we had empanadas. It was the best time while we made calls for Amendment 4. So all of those cultural events, we do have them. If you're looking for that, we do have that at Latinas en Marcha. And if you would like to see a more Florida broad perspective, you can follow FL Rising, Florida Rising, become a member. We are a membership based organization, which means that you make the rules about how we operate and the decisions that we take. And so I invite everybody to become a member of Florida Rising, of Latinas en Marcha, and for you to go and vote. It takes the most substantial change, does not take as little as voting does. It is the least you can do. It is an act of community care. And it's not only a vote for president, there's a ballot with multiple sides, with multiple decisions that affect your everyday life and affect the everyday life of the people that you love and the people that you care about, whether it be the air that we breathe, the education, the quality of education that our children receive at schools. And I can tell you, because I was a former public school teacher, the language you receive your information in, the streets where you park your car, how many trees are in your community, all of that is determined by public policy. And if you don't go and make those changes and those arrangements today, your landlord is going to do it for you. The politician that thinks you come from a shithole country is going to do it for you. The people that don't believe that you are the owner of your own body is going to do it for you. They know, they're organized. And so should we be. So we should be as well.
Absolutely. Pues gracias, Isa, por compartir este espacio con nosotros. Thank you for joining, for sharing, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing about everything that's taken up to this moment. So thank you so much for joining us, folks who are watching. We're going to continue these conversations throughout the day. Be sure to check in our next one. It's going to be happening at the top of the hour and throughout the day as we wait for those results to trickle in. So gracias, Isa. Gracias, Florida Rising. And stay tuned for our next convo.
Can't wait to celebrate.
For sure.
Bye.